Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Leppy Duels Week 7, once again presented by JRB Media. I'm your host, Jacob Arvidson, and I'm excited to have all of you with us, especially our new viewers. If that's you, take a quick second down below to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll give you a quick moment to do that. I gave you a second. Hopefully you took the time to do so. Appreciate it. Here's how the show works. In a moment, you will meet our 4 distinguished guests. Each of those guests will go 1v1 versus the other 3 contestants. Within each duel, each contestant will have 1 minute to deliver their points on the assigned debate topic, along with an additional 20 seconds to respond to their opponent's comments. After that, I, as the host, will determine a winner of each duel, and the first one to fill up their scoring bar first wins the episode. Simple enough, let's meet this week's guest. First up, he's the brand manager at Latitude 64 and the Week 6 returning Leppy Duels champion. Give it up for Seth Fendley. Next up, he hails from Chicago. He's an instrumental board member of Disc Golf Chicago and a host on the Unstable Discourse podcast, Mr. Alex Seminary. Third, he is the Team Discraft Underground captain and a returning cast member from Leppy Duels, Wes Shinevar. And fourth and finally rounding out the cast this week, he hails from the East Coast. He's directed national tour events like the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge. Give it up for Adam Harris. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, all 4 of you. Good luck to every single one of you. Let's get into it. Seth, Alex, you're up first. You guys are debating the biggest winner from the Open at Austin this past weekend. Seth, take it away.
Yeah, so I think that the answer here is Paige Pierce. Gannon, as much as I love the kid, he won USDGC, and so him coming in to win an Elite Series after that seems sort of like second fiddle. But the storyline has always been every year going into Texas, at least for the recent past, that Paige Pierce does not do well in Texas. And so Paige coming out, and especially given how she performed at Waco, coming out and being able to take down the win in Texas, I think is the story. I would love to say that the fans won, but let's be honest, watching that course was not the most fun. And so I think out of the 3 options, Paige Pierce is the easy winner here.
All right, so Seth, you're taking Paige. Alex, where are you going to go with this one?
So my initial answer was going to be the cameraman who didn't die when he got hit in the head. That's a pretty good win, but he did still get hit in the head. So I'm gonna disagree. I mean, I think it's great that Paige got the W, especially coming off the fact that she had, this was the longest streak in her career where she hadn't had, a big win. So it's great, but I really think that from a novelty perspective, it's Gannon. Gannon being a young kid who is, potentially the future GOAT of the sport. Now he's got the Silver Series win, he's got the Elite Series win, and a Majors win. The only other players who've done that are Ricky, Paul, and Chris Dickerson. So now we can, officially talk about Gannon in the same likes as, some of the other greatest players to ever play the game. So I think coming off of that lawsuit, that's a lot of pressure for anybody, especially a teenager, to perform with all that stuff on his back. He had something to prove, and I think he did it. And, just from a novelty perspective, I think this is the biggest win for Gannon.
All right, Seth, so you took Paige. Alex took Gannon Buhr. Why is Paige the bigger winner from this past weekend?
Yeah, I think there's 3 answers here. One, Alex left off a few Elite Series and Major winners, most importantly, James Conrad. 2, he said the answer for us in that Paige has gone longer without a win than Gannon has. Think about that. Paige's last win was before Gannon won the USDGC. And I think that alone is worth it. But the third for me is just this 2 different storylines, right? The expectation has been that Gannon's going to have a win this year, and it came very early. No one was really expecting Paige to win in Texas, and she was able to pull it off.
All right, Alex, why is it Gannon over Paige?
For me, it was just Paige winning. It's almost business as usual. It wasn't it just wasn't as much of a surprise to me. I still love that she got her win. There's a lot of reasons why it's a big win for her, and it's very exciting. But just the fact that this was the first time for Gannon, it's just a bigger deal to me.
Seth and Alex, great points from both of you. Thanks for opening us up with a great debate here. I like both your points, like I said. However, I think the key distinction here is that Paige Pierce has not won for almost a year, 8 months exactly, basically to the day. And Gannon has won multiple times in that time, including a major. So with that in mind, I think that's the important distinction here. Also, Seth, I'm glad you brought up that Paige has struggled in Texas despite being from Texas originally. So I think that's an important point too. I'm glad you brought that up. But for that reason, Seth, I am giving you the win in duel number 1. Sends us over to duel number 2 between Wes and Adam. You guys are going to be debating what needs to take more precedence. Should it be the amount of artificial OB needed to make a course viable? Should it be the scoring separation that the end of the tournament sees? Or should it be the player's opinion? What should have more precedent when we're setting up a course? Take it away, guys.
Yeah, touring players are going to complain no matter what, so we're going to throw that one out right away. I think any TD or person who has been around these large events and part of disc golf long enough will tell you that they've seen players complain about the course no matter what the layout is. A bad hold here, too much OB there. I think the OB, everybody has to play the course the same, so that's kind of negligible. For me, it's the exciting finishes, having some scoring separation, and moving disc golf in the direction of a spectator sport where we can bring in more eyes that are enjoying the players that are playing disc golf, and they want to see an exciting finish. They don't care if somebody is winning by 10 or 20 strokes. I know I personally, if somebody's up by 12 strokes going into the last day, I have significantly less interest than if there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that are in the mix going into the last day. I think the Disc Golf Pro Tour has done a great job adding cameras to capture that. I think they know that's what the people want to see, is these exciting finishes, the players that are in the hunt, and they're doing a really good job capturing it. So for me, it's the exciting finishes are the most important.
All right, good take, Wes. Where are you taking this one, Adam?
Well, I'll start out by saying toss out the artificial OB. That's a designer crutch or a venue crutch. We're seeing so much rope because the venues just aren't designed for disc golf. They're on ball golf courses, and they got to do what they got to do to make some kind of scoring separation, or it's just birdie fest after birdie fest and boring. Nobody wants boring. So toss out OB. I do think tour players should have an opinion, but the limited time they have on the course, a couple days of practice and a couple of rounds a year, that gives them a little bit of a perspective, but not a deep enough perspective to sometimes really say that this needs to be changed or should be changed, because maybe they haven't landed in all the right spots or all the wrong enough spots in courses. And by wrong enough, I don't mean OB. I just mean bad landing placement that doesn't give them a good shot at the birdie. But scoring separation is key to separating skill and ability, and that's what gives us the competitive finishes, when we have the best people finishing at the end. I think I agree, it's definitely scoring separation.
Differentiate yourself if you can, Wes and Adam. Why should I pick you to win this duel? Wes?
Yeah, I think, again, we're moving to a spectator sport, and these exciting finishes are just more and more important. I'm sure you could go on YouTube and look at the views for tournaments that had a closer, exciting finish. I mean, I think back to last year, the 2022 CCR Open, where we had a playoff between MJ and Conway at the end, and that video got way more views than any of the other. People want to see an exciting finish. Disc golf is moving in that direction of a spectator sport. They're the people pouring money into disc golf. It's got to be the exciting finishes for the fans.
All right, Adam, why should you win this duel?
I think the competitiveness and the scoring separation should be done by course design, because we want to see not only a tight finish, but we want to see the best players at the top. And you do that by putting them on a course that challenges everybody equally. And when you get the best players coming to the top, you get the exciting finishes and the best players. And that's what really brings people out. We want to see Tiger Woods win.
Thanks for your takes there, Wes and Adam. Great points from both of you. Wes, I'm going to give you the edge in this duel, though, however, because you brought in the YouTube viewership comment. I think you bringing in CCR being, a Midwestern A tier, which is a big event in your area, but not necessarily on the national scale. Not everybody's going to have heard of it before. And an event like that, you say scoring separation within that, going to a playoff, having a tight finish garnered more viewership than other events where there was more spread out scoring and not as much competition at the top. And that was the deciding factor. So again, that's the deciding factor for me in this duel and why I'm giving the win here. So thanks for those points, both of you. Let's move on to duel number 3. Adam, you are staying in the duel here. You're taking on Alex here for duel number 3. We're going to be addressing some people getting hit with discs. We've seen spectators get whacked multiple times and affect the end product of certain flights. We saw several weeks back in Las Vegas, Anthony Barella's drive went off the ankle of a Bushnell rangefinder guy and bounced into the hazard area, going OB, costing AB a stroke. And then this past weekend, it kind of culminated with Eagle McMahon taking over the trees shot, spiking down and hitting an unsuspecting cameraman in the top of the head, sending him to the hospital. So where are we at with this? Do we need to be organizing events better?
I want to give a shout out to Dave Oster, man. He took that like a champ. I sent him a message, and he's local to me, and he's doing fine. But yeah, camera crews and other media, they should be a little farther back. The catch cams are put in some tough spots by some of the places they're on, but they got high zoom lens. They can back out of the way. Spectators are part of the game now. In every other sport, spectators get hit. Golf, they get hit all the time. There was a specific event in a golf course where a Ryder Cup 2 or 3 years ago, the ball got wedged in the volunteer's backpack in his back, and the volunteer had to stand there so they could spot the ball. That's just that's a person in the tournament. They should be out of the way. Spectators get hit. That sucks. It happens in hockey. It happens in baseball. It just happens. Disc golf, it's going to happen when we have spectators. It's unfortunate.
All right, Alex, where are you going to take this one? Are we organizing our events wrong?
I would say we're not organizing events wrong. I think we're actually organizing events the right way. I think getting close to the action is a hugely important part of growing the sport and making it exciting for spectators. And I think the more exciting we can make it for spectators, the more exciting we make it for players. The more people that are out there, just in the action, building up the energy, makes it more exciting for everybody. And that's the number one priority for disc golf these days is growing. So I think that's an important piece. So I agree with Adam also that spectators and audience members get hit and they get involved in so many other kinds of sports, and we don't hear this same conversation from other sports. So I think the way it's set up for spectators is awesome right now. I also love that spectators can kind of get involved, and the audience at certain events is going to impact how play goes, and there's a certain personality at different events because of the spectators. So I don't think that needs to change. Then on the camera side, it's a very tough thing to say. I think the course design on this one may have restricted where the camera guys could actually be. Adam, to your point about the ability to zoom, I'm sure there's some potential for that, but I think where they're stationed is really helping to capture the best footage and create the best viewing content for us at home. So if anything, I think maybe they can look into hard hats or maybe one of those giant hats I've been seeing lately. I think Big Germ rocked one of those.
All right, so both of you guys seem to agree on the placement of the spectators. So that's cool to see. But a little bit of differentiation on the placement of the cameramen, where they need to be organized. But the third part of this question, if you guys could dive into a little bit deeper, both of you here, the staff member situation. I'm speaking specifically to the AB situation where it hit the rangefinder guy's leg and kicked into the hazard area. Touch on that a little bit as well to kind of separate yourselves in this duel.
I do think we can be doing things better. I'm not going to say we're doing it wrong, but we can definitely be doing it better. It's not done right yet. The volunteers, the staff, and the camera crews, they need to back up. They're almost impeding in some cases, or players are having to wait for them. And in other cases, like in every other sport, there's specific camera stations on golf courses. Why aren't we there yet? We can easily be there. I think we can do better.
All right, Alex?
I would love to aggressively disagree with you, but I really can't. I think it can be better, and it will get better. I think we're making really steady, reasonable progress. Yeah, we'll get there. And I think as far as the staff goes, they're the ones who probably need to set the example and get out of the way a little bit more first, and kind of again set that example. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Adam. There's room to improve, and we'll get there, but there's nothing drastically bad right now.
There was a little differentiation on the camera aspect of it, and I think that's where I'm going to give Adam the edge. I think, Adam, you make a great point when you say, we do have high zoom lenses now. We don't need to be right up in the action. We can be farther away at a safe distance where we're not disrupting an event or putting ourselves at risk to get hit in the head. So I think that's a great point. For that reason, I'm going to give you the win in this duel, but I also want to highlight, I think it's important that we look at mainstream sports and we say, hey, when you're buying a ticket, you're accepting the risk, depending on where you're sitting, of potentially getting hit by a ball, a bat, a stick, whatever the sport may be. And I think the same thing needs to apply to a disc golf, and I think the spectators accept that at that point. So great points from you, both of you on that. Adam gets the point there. Sends us to duel number 4. Seth and Wes, get ready to debate the Prodigy lawsuit once again. We're 1 month out from the big Prodigy suing of Gannon Buhr. Where are you guys at with it now? Has anything changed opinion-wise with you, and what have you seen in your local disc golf community or the greater disc golf scene as a whole?
Yeah, so we know that Prodigy has dropped the temporary injunction, which tells us that some movement has been made on one side or the other. I'm going to assume that what this means is that there's been some concessions towards Prodigy in that the player is going to continue to play for them and represent them and potentially stay through the end of the year. And so I think, that being said, there's 3 things that that I see sort of changing, or maybe the lasting impact side of things. The first is going to be player contracts. One of the things that at least I know internally from my experience is that there hasn't previously been a lot of buyout clauses in player contracts, namely because player contracts have historically only been 1 year at a time. And so as we see the larger contracts come out, as we see multi-year contracts come out, we're going to see buyout clauses. The second is going to be player loyalty. I think players are now going to start taking more seriously how they feel about the brands that they're representing and whether or not they feel comfortable staying with them for a long term, given what they've seen happen with Prodigy. And then finally, outside of the player side of things, I think we see some effect on disc sales. Just hearing from retailers around the country that there has been some impact there because of the way that Prodigy's handled it. So those are the 3 things that I see sort of coming out of this. And some of those things I probably would have said a month ago too.
All right, Wes, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I've kind of had a love-hate with this since the beginning. I agree that the contracts, players, in other sports, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, we're seeing some ridiculous contracts. Not everybody is cut out for a 10-year, $10 million deal. There's a lot of risk on both ends for that kind of deal, both the manufacturer and the player, because let's say the player wins the next 10 world championships and maybe they're worth $2 million at that point, or let's say they get injured at the beginning of the contract like we're seeing with some other manufacturers and you lose out on all of that money. I think that this is going to weigh heavily on the contracts because there's just a lot of choices to be made from both players and manufacturers on the length of contract and how much you're paying these players. And you really got to be cautious on the manufacturer side that you're paying somebody that has the credibility to be worth the money that they're asking for and doesn't have injury issues. In other sports like the NFL, if there's a player who's injury ridden, you do not sign them to a $10 million deal. I think that this does weigh heavily on contracts, but also on the players, like Seth said, and just choosing the companies that they want to represent. It makes it a lot more serious to what they're doing if these contracts are really starting to be enforced along the way.
All right, so similar statements, but you did make a couple different points within those. Seth, what separates you from Wes's argument here?
Yeah, I think that Wes is looking specifically at some of these bigger contracts, and I think more long term we're talking really sort of across the board, right? Like of how we approach contracts, and that really stems more towards the player loyalty, which Wes got towards at the end, but really like how players and companies both are assessing their where things lie with the players, how long they want to commit to them, how long the player wants to commit to them. But more importantly, the last point that I brought in, the disc sales, I think that that's something that doesn't get touched on. That is a whole nother can of worms that we could have like a completely separate discussion on even.
So you guys both hit hard on the contract side, but right at the end there, Wes, he started to hit on the disc sales side more. Why is that or not that the thing we should be taking away from this lawsuit 1 month removed from the initial filing?
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces to this. I bet Seth and I could talk about this for a long time. But I think if you go on social media, even the most recent Prodigy post on Facebook, and you go and look at the comments, there is a lot of hate for Prodigy based on how they've handled this. And again, I mentioned I have a love-hate with this. You know, I actually like that this is enforcing the seriousness of the contracts and what that will do for the disc golf world going into the future. But the point that I hate about this is that Gannon Buhr is 17 years old, and it just looks so bad for Prodigy to be suing a kid. I understand his mom was a part of this contract, but he's still just a kid. And to Gannon Buhr's credit, he's handled this like a champ. He's won 2 big tournaments this year already. The kid just wants to play disc golf. So let's get this lawsuit thing dropped. Let's get it behind us, and let's just get on with disc golf.
So Seth and Wes, great points from both of you guys. Wes, I love that you finished the statement off there by saying this is a 17-year-old kid with an entire lawsuit on his shoulders, and he's been able to win a major, an elite series, a pair of A tiers, and been playing at an extremely high level. So I think that's an important note, but I'm going to give you the win, particularly for your point about the social media. You look back a month before today, you know, when the initial lawsuit dropped, you had people just ripping Prodigy apart on social media. And anytime Prodigy is posting anything, even this week, 1 month out from the initial lawsuit, it's the same reaction. So I think that social media statement is very important. I'm glad you brought it up. And then you tied it all together by saying, yeah, even amidst all of that drama, Gannon's been able to win this past weekend his first Elite Series. So fantastic stuff there. Wes takes duel number 4, sends us to duel number 5 between Adam and Seth. Adam, you're going to be up first. You guys are going to be debating grip enhancement products. We've seen things like chalk, dust bags, wax become more popular over the last couple of years. Is this something the PDGA needs to keep an eye on?
Grip enhancement rules, no. No chance. Let the player do what they want. The PDGA shouldn't be getting involved in that. They have a lot more to worry about. I lick my fingers. I know Schwebby licks his disc to get some grip and to get some tack on it. I've seen Yeti lick his disc too. Some people like it tacky with the powder. You know, we've seen Gannon with his chalk bag over and over and over. You got to do what you got to do to get it to. It's a very personal, specific thing for each person. Everybody likes it different. I can't stand chalk, but I know people that do. I've tried the wax. I didn't like it. But grip is very important to this game. There's no way the PDGA should be getting involved. If they want to start regulating grip, who's going to monitor that? Who's going to pay attention to it? How's anybody going to watch it? There's just so many things that could go wrong with that. There's no way that they should be getting involved with that. Let a player do what they feel is comfortable.
All right, Seth, what do you got?
Yeah, so I think that there's sort of 2 thoughts for me on it, and I have a similar take as Adam, but I want to take it in a little bit of a different direction. At the end of the day, we want to see the best disc golf, and we want to see the best shots. And the best way for us to be able to do that is for the players to be able to grip the disc as best as possible. And so I'm in the same camp. I don't think that it should be regulated. I think that we want to have the players throwing the best shots. And Adam's right. Like, it is a completely different personal preference for every person. And so to have some sort of regulation means that someone's going to get left out, or someone's going to be using a suboptimal product. And then to add a little bit on there, right, like, I think Adam's right. There's several other things that the PDGA has in their rulebook currently that they already aren't really regulating, right? Like, we're supposed to have marked disc. And the amount of players who don't have marked disc is through the roof. We're supposed to be throwing regulation weight disc. Those don't get checked either. I think at the end of the day, we want to see the best shots.
The reason this was brought up on a lot of social media forums recently is because it was being compared to steroids in baseball. Just some competitors getting in a competitive advantage by using a certain substance that other competitors weren't using to, in baseball, increase distance, but the same could be said in theory for disc golf. So is grip enhancement something we should be worried about in that regard? Or like you guys said, is it about watching the best shots, the best players throw the best lines? So it really doesn't matter. Adam?
I don't think it's anything like steroids. That's just something online somebody's saying as a keyboard warrior. So be it. Let them roll. Seth, you mentioned it's about comfort. I think, people throw confident shots when their grip's right, when they're comfortable. Players got to do what they got to do to get comfortable. And if you're not thinking about your grip and you're not thinking about it in your mind, you're going to throw the best shot you're capable of. To compare it to steroids or compare it to an unfair advantage, that's totally not right, because everybody can go pick whatever they choose. It's readily available to everybody and legal.
Seth, why should you win this duel?
Yeah, so the other point that I was going to make that I didn't really see fit to make it until you asked that follow-up question is that I do think that the field should be equitable. But at the end of the day, the different materials that people are using are all, to Adam's point, readily accessible. And so if we're going to be focused on the best shots, if we're going to be focused on really the competition as a whole, people are able to get what they need to be able to throw those shots. And also, to Adam's point that he doesn't really touch on at the end, this is one less thing that the PDGA would need to regulate and really shouldn't have to regulate. And so I think overall, it's really not something we should be worried about.
Awesome points from both of you guys. You took a different route to get there to say the same thing, but I think the same thing that you said is very important. I think at this point, we need to see the best shots from the players. Who cares what they're using to grip the discs, as long as they're performing and giving us some entertainment, something to hang their hat on. That's all that matters right now. So I'm glad you guys said that. I'm going to give Seth the point here and the win in this duel because of your particular point on the PDGA rulebook. I love that you brought up a couple other rules that could be regulated, could be enforced, and they just aren't because it's not worth the investment and the time to worry about that right now because it'll affect the game negatively. So I love that point from you, Seth. Thanks for bringing that up. You get the win here in duel number 5. Brings us to duel number 6 between Wes and Alex. Wes, you've got a chance to win the episode here. You're sitting on 2 points, a potential 3. Is Alex going to be able to block you and send us to a tiebreaker? We'll find out here momentarily. The question you guys are debating is this past weekend, Paige Pierce on hole 3, the final round, opened at Austin, went through the double Mando, kind of kicked off the tree, rolled back around, half in, half out. Did she cross the Mando line? Did she not? She played a provisional as she should have. But the question forming from that situation is rules officials. Should they be present on lead cards? Should they be present at chase cards? Should they be present at elite events at all? And then going down the tier levels. Should they be at A tiers, B tiers, C tiers? What should the official presence be for making big rulings in the midst of a round? Take it away.
So I don't think there's a real change needed for A tiers, B tiers, C tiers. The system that we have in place right now is kind of like the provisional shot. It cures all ails to me. As long as you're not, if you're never sure, or I'm sorry, if you're ever unsure of a shot, you play the provisional, and that seems to be working out just fine. But when you start talking about the elites and those majors, real money on the line, real careers on the line at this point, ideal world, there would be an official. Ideal world, an official on maybe lead card and chase. I understand that there's always going to be limited resources. Can they afford to pay all these people? Can they even get enough qualified people to make this work? I'm sure we can eventually. For now, I think still the provisional shot kind of cures all ails, and I think it's a little unfortunate that Paige didn't know the rule, but also she did the right thing and played the provisional. So Do we need to make a huge change? I think we will eventually, but for now, the provisional system and the card consensus is working out just fine.
Great points, Alex. All right, Wes, what's the official presence that we need on the course right now?
Yeah, the first really 3 or 4 cards, in my opinion, absolutely need a rules officials. I think Alex made a good point about qualified individuals. I think that especially at these Disc Golf Pro Tours or Elite Series events, we absolutely need one in those top couple of cards on both sides. The big point that I want to make is that the players do not want to have to make those calls, especially on the lead card when you're competing against other players for a lot of money. When these players are winning these tournaments now, they're getting a disc to commemorate it that often trumps the money that they win from the tournament. It is not fair to have players make calls against or for each other in those situations. It's just not fair. There's too much on the line for those players. And the other part of that goes with that is that these players are so focused on themselves to have to worry about every other player's shot and follow along with what every other player is doing every single time is just too much. Like, these players are too focused on what they're doing. They don't want to have a weird vibes on the card that just kind of make the rest of the round strange. The top couple of cards at the Disc Golf Pro Tours and Silver Series need to have a rules official with them.
All right, so you both seem to agree we need some semblance of an official's presence, especially for Elite Series in this case. But how far down should that trickle on the levels? Majors, Elite Series, Silver Series, and then down the ABC tier list. Where should the presence be? How much of a presence should there be on each level? Where are you guys going to go with this on your rebuttals? Alex?
It's got to come down to the resources of the event. And I don't know if anybody's ever swooped from fourth card or all the way up to first place, but maybe it has happened. I just don't know about it. But I assume, at the very least, lead card, chase card, and probably third card as well for the elites and majors. Again, if we want the sport to be continuously, taken more seriously, I totally agree with Wes's point that the players need to be able to play at their highest level and not worried about, these little mental hiccups that can completely throw, a couple of holes, if not the whole round.
All right, Wes, you've got a chance to bring it home for yourself here. What do you got?
Yeah, I think, A tiers and below, there's still obviously a lot of money at A tiers and stuff, but finding those resources to have somebody for even those top couple of cards is hard. It's tough to get volunteers just for spotters in places that you need them to keep the tournament day moving, but the Pro Tour and these Elite Series events, they actually have a staff. The Disc Golf Pro Tour has a good staff, and on top of that, there's a lot of people that come out to these events. They could definitely vet some volunteers for those top 3 cards, other local TDs to the area, or people maybe that are regional that volunteer to come and be rules officials for those top cards. The Pro Tour has the resources to do it, and we definitely need it for those top couple of cards.
Good stuff from both of you. I'm going to go back to Wes's initial point here on his initial statement about the emotional aspect of this. I think it's a very important thing to point out that these players are worried about their own game, worried about their own execution, shot by shot by shot, trying to win this tournament, especially in the lead and chase card situations where they don't want to mess up the vibe that's going on the card for themselves, really, and for their card mates. That's just not something they want to touch. They want to worry about the game that they're playing and the game they're trying to execute. So shaking that up, like we've seen, doesn't happen very often because the majority of the time, if there is a rule discrepancy, they're more willing to step back and just let it play its course and not disrupt what's going on in the first place. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Alex kind of agreed with you there on his rebuttal to hit this thing home for you. But point goes to Wes here in the final duel, putting you to 3 and giving you the win for episode 7. Congratulations, Wes. You've got the floor. The stage is yours. 1 to 2 minutes. What do you got for the people?
Yeah, there's a big deal going around on social media right now with fake agents, and I just want to talk about it a little bit because it seems to be an ongoing problem, and we're not just seeing it in disc golf, we're seeing it in other sports as well. I had a friend who is a bowler that was seeing the same thing as well, just a manufacturing company reaching out about a sponsorship. It's a fake agent just trying to sell themselves, often asking for your financial information. The manufacturer companies are not going to reach out to you from a random account and ever ask you for financial information. It's just not ever going to happen. The amount of messages I've got in the last couple of weeks asking if these profiles are related to any of the manufacturers is astounding to me. So I really just want to continue to highlight it, let people know that, these random personal accounts are not going to be reaching out to you. Do not give them your financial information. Make sure you're staying safe out there.
Wes, I'm so glad you brought that up again. I think it's an important point to drive home. If you've got any concerns whatsoever, do your research, vet the account that's trying to approach you. And at the end of the day, it's just like any phone scam, text scam, email scam that have been going on for years. They're trying to get your money. They're trying to get your financial information. Be careful with the information you give out and protect yourself at the end of the day. So thanks again, Wes. Congrats again to you for winning episode 7. And of course, thank you to Alex, Adam, and Seth for joining us as well this week. All of you guys at home, again, if you have not liked or subscribed, please take a quick second down below to do that. Otherwise, enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you next week for episode 8. Thanks, guys.